Good evening, Bahamas, and thank you for joining us for this important national conversation. Tonight we are doing something the government refused to do. We are opening the doors to public discussion on a bill that will affect every community, every family, and the future of our country. The PLP chose not to consult the Bahamian people. The FNM believes the people must be heard. And so tonight, you will hear directly from the voices who have debated and studied this bill, worked in the system, and understand exactly what is at stake. We are joined tonight by our leader, the Honorable Michael Pintard, our party chairman, Dr. Dwayne Sands, St. Anne's MP, Adrian White, FNM candidate for Carmichael, Orinthia Komalafi, and attorney, Heather Hunt. These are the individuals who bring experience to governance, law, and community advocacy. They are here to speak plainly about what this bill really means for the Bahamas. This is not about politics. This is about fellow Bahamians who believe in the rule of law, in protecting the integrity of our borders, and in defending the systems that hold our country together. We are a country of laws. And when we surrender control of our borders, whether by air or by sea, there are real consequences. We feel them every day in our schools, in our clinics, in social services, and in the pressure placed on hardworking Bahamian families. We also know this: the Bahamas does not have the capacity to receive an unlimited number of migrants. And saying that does not make us unkind, unchristian, or uncaring. We cannot support our neighbors in crisis. We can support our neighbor in crisis. We can help strengthen their democracies and rebuild their economies. We can stand with them at the regional and international levels. But we cannot sacrifice the stability of our own country in the process. And while some government members tried to lecture us in Parliament about Christian values, let us remember, the PLP does not have a monopoly on compassion. Many of us here tonight fought against abuse in the detention center when it happened under their watch. And many of us watched the same PLP government try to block migrant children from entering school in 2015. So we cannot allow this debate to be twisted by hypocrisy. Tonight, we focus on the facts. 1, what this bill actually does. 2, what are its risks? And 3, what does it mean for our borders? And why the FNM has taken the firm position that this bill will be repealed when we are in government. And as we talk about the dangers, you will also hear the other half of the conversation. The FNM's vision for immigration: clear, practical, and focused on enforcement, fairness, and national security. So let's begin. Let's talk plainly. Let's talk truthfully. And let's talk about the Bahamas we are trying to protect. Before we begin our panel discussion, it is my honor to invite the Free National Movement leader, the Honorable Michael C. Pintard, to offer his opening remarks and frame tonight's conversation for the Bahamian people. Mr. Leader.
Thank you very much, Senator Henfield. Good evening, FNMs. Good evening, Bahamas. Good evening. I want to first of all say thank you to all of you who have tuned in by way of television or online, and those of you that are here in the hall. Tonight we are here because this is a defining moment for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This government has brought forward a Smuggling of Migrant Bill that impacts our borders, our security, and make no mistake, the future of our people. And yet they chose to do so without properly consulting all of you, the very citizens who will live with the consequences of the choices that this government makes. Some would have you believe that we are brand new to this discussion, when the truth is we have been working on these issues across multiple administrations. And since we were kicked out of office, we stood firm on this issue over the last 4 years. We've held demonstrations outside of the Ministry of Immigration because of the excesses of Keith Bell. We stood in front of Monarch House because we were certain decisions being made there did not work in the best interest of Bahamians. We stood up in Parliament and called for a select committee on immigration. We've held town meetings and discussions with Bahamians and press conferences and have been online. So we are not brand new to this discussion. That is why we continue this discussion tonight. That is why we stood in Parliament and have been on the radio to speak plain to Bahamians and to say, there is a need for us to understand the bill. And even though the government ran scared when Bahamians stood up and said it was a horrible bill, the amendments they made were not sufficient to make it acceptable. The bill still needs to be killed. It still needs to be withdrawn. We have made a commitment that we are prepared, when we take government, to repeal and replace this bill. The removal of Section 11, again, was because of people power and pressure. They knew exactly what they were doing, and we want to understand what motivated them. The truth is, illegal immigration is a national security concern. It affects our schools, our clinics, our social systems, and our communities. And any law that deals with smuggling must strengthen our borders, not weaken them. Must strengthen our law enforcement capabilities, not weaken them. It should send a strong message to those who are tempted to break the law that there will be consequences and they will not escape justice. This bill, while it sets out to do that, the job is far from being complete, and that is why we rejected it. This bill confuses trafficking with smuggling. It treats people who are willing to pay to break our laws as victims, and that is wrong. It opens new loopholes instead of closing them. It sends the wrong message to some who are willing to break our laws. And so tonight, we are here to make it even clearer. This bill assigns the wrong powers to the wrong minister, not just based on the ministry that he's overseeing. Make no mistake, he is the wrong minister. This bill creates confusion in the very system that needs clarity and discipline. We believe in compassion. We also believe that there's a need for us to exercise integrity. And we cannot afford, as gatekeepers for this country, to give the impression that we are losing control, not just over our borders, but lands and scarce resources. We believe in fairness. But fairness cannot mean that we reward illegal entry into the country. Fairness cannot mean that we are allowing persons who recently arrived to jump the queue because they have the right connections and the right amount of money, while there are thousands of persons who for many years have been waiting so that their status could be clarified and dealt with in a humane way according to the laws of the Bahamas. We believe in regional cooperation, but cooperation does not require the Bahamas to put itself at risk in a way that is damaging to our future. Senator Henfield said, we can help by strengthening democracies, and right now today, we have done it and we are doing it. We could help in terms of addressing issues that destabilize neighboring economies. Not only we have done so in the past, we'll continue to do so. And so tonight, we will talk about what this bill truly means and how to fix the core problems and the gaps and the need to look at related pieces of legislation like the Trafficking in Persons Act, the Immigration Act, the Proceeds of Crime Act, and to come back not only with a new and better bill, but with a compendium of bill that we have come to you and ask your opinion on how to improve. And so tonight, we welcome you, and we're glad you're going to be a part of this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Leader, for laying the foundation for our very important discussion tonight. We fight for the people of this country. We fight for the future of children yet unborn. We fight for our very soul and survival. To our panelists, let us start with a question for each of you. What is the biggest issue for you in the Smuggling of Migrants Bill, and why is it such a serious concern for the Bahamas? Orinthia Komalafi.
Thank you, Senator Henfield. Good evening, FNMs. Good evening, Bahamas. Tonight, I want to walk Bahamians through a part of this bill that the government has not explained honestly. Sections 16 and 17 deal with protections for smuggled migrants, and on the surface, they may appear harmless. But when you look closely, these persons actually give smuggled migrants rights and guarantees that many Bahamians do not have today. Contrary to what the Prime Minister said today, and you saw the headline, he said, the bill creates no new rights for those who illegally enter Bahamian waters. Well, Section 16 requires the minister to protect smuggled migrants from violence. Section 17 requires the minister to provide appropriate assistance when their lives are in danger. Those phrases sound compassionate, but they are extremely broad, very expensive, and far beyond protections offered to Bahamian women, children, and vulnerable families who struggle to get help every single day. We have women in abusive homes begging for safe shelters. We have children who need support services that the government has failed to provide. Yet, this bill creates new guaranteed protections for people who choose to enter the Bahamas illegally without any explanation of how these obligations will be carried out. And that brings me to another concern. None of these new responsibilities come with a plan. This bill places a heavy load on systems that are already stretched. The police force, defense force, immigration, health care, education, the legal and detention systems, and border control. These agencies are overwhelmed now. How will they suddenly take on additional duties? Which ministry will manage these new services? Has the government created a unit to handle them? How much will it cost? And does the Bahamas even have certified translators available to meet these obligations? These are basic questions, yet the government has offered no answers. The bill also goes further in Section 19, granting smuggled migrants rights to privacy, confidentiality, food, shelter, clothing, documentation, and translation services. Section 20 guarantees that smuggled migrant children will have access to education regardless of their immigration status. Ridiculous. Again, Bahamians are not against treating people humanely, but we cannot ignore the fact that many Bahamians do not enjoy these same guaranteed protections. Our own citizens are standing in long lines, struggling to access services, while this bill requires the state to prioritize and provide for those who entered illegally. And the biggest gap of all is this. The bill never defines what documentation means. Does it mean government-issued ID, a work permit, temporary residency, or something even more permanent? Without clarity, this becomes a loophole that can be abused, especially in a system already weakened by political interference and poor oversight. What makes all of this even more troubling is the government's history. The PLP still has not released the immigration report that led to the firing of the former minister. They have ignored international recommendations on transparency and accountability. They have failed to prioritize important laws like whistleblower protection, campaign finance reform, and the long-promised Freedom of Information regime. Yet this is the bill they are rushing to pass months before a general election, and they are doing it without public consultation, without proper planning, and without the involvement of the Bahamian people. The truth is simple. This bill gives smuggled migrants and protections that Bahamians themselves do not enjoy. It creates obligations the state cannot meet. It opens loopholes we cannot afford, and it shifts limited resources away from citizens who already feel neglected by the systems meant to protect them. Bahamians are compassionate and generous, but we must also protect our borders, our institutions, and our future. This bill fails to do that. That is why we say it must be withdrawn and redrafted, not patched, not amended, and rebuilt from the ground up with real consultation, real clarity, and a commitment to putting Bahamians first. Thank you.
Thank you, Orenthia.
Thank you.
Our immigration system is in urgent need of repair. It is in urgent need of the plan of the Free National Movement. Adrian White, Member of Parliament for St. Anne's, what concerns you most about this bill for the future of Bahamians in our country?
There's a stark reality in this bill that hasn't gotten enough attention yet. The government has laid this bill in a manner without proper consultation, and what this bill is doing, at bare minimum, put aside all the objections that everybody's had, this bill is for the first time creating an offense for smuggling of migrants in the Bahamas. So smuggling is now offense in our country. But what they've done is that they've made the offense of smuggling of migrants a two-element offense. So to find somebody and charge them with an offense, you have to be able to prove that they have obtained, either directly or indirectly, a financial or other material benefit, and that's basically money, and that they received that money so that they would procure the illegal entry or illegal landing of persons in our country. The problem with that is the majority of persons that are going to be caught, so to put anybody behind bars and convict them, you have to catch them and you got to be able to convict them. The majority of people that are going to be interdicted in the Bahamas on vessels or on our shores already landed are going to be a boat captain, maybe a first mate. It's not going to be the money men. It's not going to generally be the middlemen. It's not even likely to be the person that those travelers on that vessel have ever met before. It's going to be extremely difficult. It's traditionally been difficult to identify who the captain is, but it's going to be even more difficult now, not only to identify the captain, but to have to prove that they obtained, either directly or indirectly, financial or other material benefit. And if you can't prove that, those smugglers walk free. And what happens? The Bahamian government goes through the process of interdicting. They go through the process of charging. They go through the process of holding somebody on remand until their trial date comes up. That's a lot of money that the taxpayer is going to have to pay. And then they go through a trial. And the prosecutor is faced with the difficult offense and having to prove it in the court, not only that they were caught in the Bahamas operating a vessel with migrants on board, but that that individual received money in return for bringing those persons into our country or onto our shores. It's almost going to be impossible. It's easier to convict the weed man, the man pushing dope on the road, the man selling weed, smuggling with possession and intent to supply. Possession and intent to supply. You got to have control of possession over the weed, and then you got to be able to show that it was for an intent to supply. You prove that by showing that the amount was more than for personal use, or that the amount has been packaged in such a way, whether it's in foils or small baggies, that clearly it wasn't for their personal consumption. And that's it. Once you've proven intent, possession with intent to supply, they're convicted. You get a smuggler on a vessel, they are in control of the persons on board that vessel. They have an intention to supply them to a new destination. That's all our prosecutors should be required to do. When the FNM government comes in and this bill, once it passes, gets repealed and replaced, we will make the offense simpler so that there could be more prosecutions, more convictions, less interference with our borders, and we will ensure that prosecutors will have a chance to bring conviction and do away with what is, honestly, a very risky process for persons to travel into our waters, especially by sea. Thank you very much.
Adrian, you make a very strong point. As a former member of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, I've had opportunity to board many of these vessels. And one of the things we could not determine, most times, 90% of the time, was who was the master of the vessel. And you know why? Because the families that those migrants left back home were threatened that if you point out the captain, there will be consequences to pay back in Haiti. This is a real problem. Once again, Adrian White, thank you. Heather Hunt, you are a mother of two. You're an attorney at an attorney at law, and so you have a stake in the future of this country. What concerns you about this bill?
Thank you, Senator. Tonight I want to focus on an issue that I believe hasn't received nearly enough attention, but it may be one of the most dangerous parts of this entire bill. The government has given sweeping immigration powers to the minister. Thank you. So tonight I want to focus on an issue that I believe hasn't received enough attention, and it probably is one of the most dangerous parts of this entire bill. The government has given sweeping immigration powers to the Minister of National, not the minister responsible for immigration. And so for everyone watching online and in the room, let me explain why this matters. Under this act, it is the Minister of National Security who is responsible. It's the Minister of National Security, in short, who decides which smuggled person stays and which smuggled person goes. Not the Minister of Immigration. And the Minister of Immigration is the person who currently has legal responsibility for immigration status, documentation, detention, and deportation. In matters arising under this act, the Minister of Immigration is reduced to assisting. That should immediately raise red flags for every Bahamian. We already know the Minister of National Security is struggling to manage crime in this country. Now, on top of that, he's being asked to take full control of smuggled migrant status, protections, rights, documentation, food, healthcare, international cooperation, and removal. That makes no sense. So let me break down just what this actually looks like. In Section 22, it says that the Minister of National Security will lead everything. That's what it says, basically, while the Minister of Immigration assists, and the Minister of Social Services cooperates within a new task force framework. But who is in charge? Who makes the final decision? Have they made the Minister of National Security suddenly the most powerful figure in our immigration system? Then we come to Section 24, which creates something called the the competent national authority to facilitate cooperation regarding smuggling of migrants at sea. Again, that authority falls under the Minister of National Security. But no one can tell us who this authority is, what qualifications they need, how will they operate, or what accountability they will have. And we all remember the last time we had a competent authority. And it did not inspire confidence. So how can the government justify creating another powerful, undefined role and one that sits above multiple ministers? What about the Attorney General, whose office normally guides international legal cooperation? What about the Minister of Foreign Affairs, who manages treaties and diplomatic engagements? Are they suddenly sidelined by this bill? We also have Section 31, which deals with the validity of documents. And you would have heard Mrs. Komalafi express concern over the same issue. No one can answer the basic question: what is a document? Is it an ID? Is it a work permit? Is it a residence certificate? Well, if it's the Minister of National Security who is issuing or validating these documents, the public deserves clarity on all of these issues before the law is passed and not afterward. And here is another critical point. If this bill conflicts with any other Bahamian law, the provisions of this bill prevail and win every single time. And Section 35 says so plainly. What that means is if the Smuggling of Migrants Act clashes with the immigration law, the nationality law, or any other statute, this act will override it. And that is just not a technical issue. What it means in a practical sense is that the government has rewritten the entire immigration framework without properly explaining it to the Bahamian people. And so, this is why it's so important to get this bill right, because once it becomes law, on every single matter covered under this act, it does not matter what the other laws say. And we are being asked to accept a bill that hands unprecedented immigration power to one minister without explaining how that power will be used, limited, or checked. Bahamians deserve transparency. They deserve clarity. They deserve a government that does not rush massive changes to immigration law without explaining the consequences. This bill is not ready. It is dangerous, and it must be withdrawn. Thank you.
Heather, if I understand you correctly, if you are incompetent in one area, we give you another area that is equally or even more important. How do we appreciate the logics of governance in this fashion? Dr. Dwayne Sands, Bahamians want to know from you, one of the foremost physicians in our country, how this bill will impact them.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Hanfield, and good evening. You know, it's clear that healthcare challenges remain among the most critical issues for Bahamians in 2025. Our people are faced with exploding costs of living, burdensome taxes, and a neglected health system where rationing of access to care is a daily reality. It's the order of the day. A fundamental belief of most Bahamian citizens is that our health system ought to provide safe, accessible service when needed. But you know, and I know that sadly, this is often not the case. As people find long lines, neglected facilities, staffing shortages, and funding shortages made worse by this administration's bizarre priorities. I serve as the Minister of Health. There are almost 50 different legislation that touch on healthcare delivery. We have the Health Services Act, we got the Medical Act, the Dental Act, the Nurses and Midwives, and I could go on. Some of these acts have been around since 1865. That's the Vaccination Act. None of them, I can say this again, none of them provides the robust guarantee for accessibility to care as found in Section 15 of the Smuggling of Migrants Bill. So if you have expensive care for cancer therapy, or you need treatment for heart disease or major trauma, it may, I repeat, may be managed through our public health system. Our citizens can apply to get a little bit of assistance, maybe through the Catastrophic Health Fund. But be assured, there are no guarantees. The underfunded, struggling NHI does not do it. The public health or public hospitals legislation does not do it. I want you to hear me. There is no statutory right for Bahamians to receive urgent medical care required for the preservation of life or the avoidance of harm to health. But under this legislation, this is a statutory right guaranteed to persons who have been smuggled into the country. A right that they can go to court and have it enforced. A Bahamian that is born and bred here does not have that right, does not have that legislative protection. Let me say again, Bahamians with healthcare needs may get help, but there are no guarantees and certainly no legislated right. As an example, in some other countries, anyone who arrives at an emergency room is eligible for life-saving care. But in the Bahamas, every day, families face emotional hardship to fund cardiac or cancer care, purchase expensive medications, and then they got to pay 10% VAT on the cost. But due to this sloppily drafted bill, and I quote Section 15, smuggled migrants shall have the right in the Bahamas to receive urgent medical care required for the preservation of life or the avoidance of harm to health. This is the first act or piece of legislation in this country to guarantee the right to health care. The first. And it's not for a Bahamian, it's for a migrant. Just so you put this in context, we looked at utilization at a busy obstetrical clinic, public clinic in Nassau from August to November of 2025. During that time, they saw 750 pregnant women. 284 of them were migrants, 466 were Bahamians. So in this context now, you have Bahamians that are waiting, begging for access to services that their taxes pay for. And so I conclude by asking you, what message are we sending about priorities when the first ever guarantee of access ain't about you, your mommy, your daddy, your son, your daughter, or your grandfather? It is for a migrant. This bill, if passed, will make that situation worse. And I end by saying, kill the bill.
Dr. Sands, I believe that's a fitting way to end our panel discussion. But before we do so, I will invite our leader for his final comments, and then we'll open up the floor for some questions and answers.
Thank you very much, Senator Henfield, and let me say a special thanks to all of our panelists and all of you who continue to join us. One of the statements that has been made tonight is that it is important to make sure that we have the right bill given the impact of the provisions in this particular bill. I believe that those who were not convinced would be convinced now that we did not get the right bill. These points and more were made to this government before they passed the bill. So clearly, we did not get the right bill. So what should be our response? Our response should be to then get rid of this government that brought it and passed it. For the last few weeks, the point has been made to this government that this is a dangerous bill, a bill that confuses smuggling with trafficking, one that weakens our borders, threatens national security. But the question for all of us is, what next? Where do we go from here? To put it plainly, the Free National Movement, we believe, is the only party in this race that can fix this immigration system, protect this country with your help, not alone. We believe that we have one party on the far right that believes that every problem is related to immigration, every single one, that they believe that migrants are completely responsible for all that is wrong. We don't have that view. We understand the contribution of migrants from various countries. What we are saying is we want persons to come in the right way to fully enjoy the privileges of being in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. That far too many persons being here, particularly coming in illegally, does put a strain on our system. So we do not share the view of those to the far right. So when persons say, we must show our commitment to fighting this cause by standing with them, we don't want you to be confused about our message and our position. It is not the one that they have. But then there's the government, the other party on the far left, whose decisions about immigration are based on at least two things. One, looking at all the consultants that they have in immigration and facilitators, one motivation for them is this: financial benefit. The second consideration for them is political benefit. We wish for immigration to work for all of our citizens, that Bahamians will not be displaced at either the blue-collar or the white-collar level by those who come in illegally or legally. We believe that positive migration, defined by us as a people, can be of benefit to our country. The PLP is not engaged in that, and the others are not qualified at all. And so, tonight, we wish you to recognize the ideas that we have brought to the table and the plans that we have put forward. Many of you tonight who are listening, we know you're pissed off. You're frustrated that you've lost trust in the system's ability to serve you. The truth is, your trust in our system has been weakened by political interference, corruption, inefficiencies in the system, and lack of the required resources. Tonight, we hope in this conversation and many to come after that we could repair your trust. We don't believe that we have all the answers. We believe that no political leader or party does. But we believe that working in concert with you, we could change the system and restore trust. That's precisely why we went in the House of Assembly and we called for a select committee on immigration. A committee that has the power to call for witnesses and papers and do investigations with ordinary citizens involved, private sector involved, local and international organizations involved, so we could figure out how to fix a broken system, remove bad actors, send a clear message to corrupt persons employed by the state or in the private sector. We called for a select committee that would involve all of you. The PLP's response was to vote against going in that direction. We need to close the loopholes, enforce the laws, and end the culture of looking the other way. We must protect Bahamian communities and rights to possess and access to our own lands. We must punish those that break the law, and many of them are not hailing from any other country but the Bahamas. But these policymakers that we oppose, cuddle them, protect them, give them status to do immigration work. We promise you we will fix this broken system and we will remove the bad actors and restore trust. We believe that one of the requirements to fix the system is to have persons who are competent, but persons who are also compassionate. The PLP wishes you to believe it's them. We say judge them by their action. These are qualities that we believe our team possess, and we do not have a track record of betraying this country through our immigration system. We have introduced Operation Shield. It's simple, and we'll deliver it to you in direct language. The S really stands for securing our land and ending illegal occupation. We will increase maritime patrols, invest in modern vessels and then maintain them, invest in drones and radar, and ensure 24-hour coverage of key routes and landing points in the Bahamas. We will close the gaps that smugglers now exploit with ease. In 2025, we have an obligation to use technology that will assist us in being more effective. We will implement a biometric system to establish a comprehensive database of all persons who enter the Bahamas, because we need to figure out when they are expected to leave when they are here on a temporary visa or work permit, and have the ability to monitor it and determine if they left when they were supposed to leave, and to ensure that all concerned comply with our law. The H in SHIELD stands for heightened surveillance. We will expand surveillance of our marinas, private docks, and high-risk coastal areas. We will integrate intelligence we gather from the local community that our policymakers pretend as if they don't know what's going on in these communities. We'll work with regional partners, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Turks and Caicos Islands, and U.S. agencies to identify suspicious activities before vessels arrive in the Bahamas and before planes depart other jurisdictions with ill intent. But not only that, we will heighten surveillance of bad actors who reside in the Bahamas. Let's be honest, some work for agencies that you and I pay for. Yes, they are in the minority, but their decisions have lasting impacts. And of course, we will call on our counterparts in other countries to do the same. We have to restore the integrity in our processes and our system. The I in SHIELD stands for investigate, not just anything, but political abuse. We will not tolerate political interference in immigration enforcement, as we saw under this administration, by the Minister of Immigration, who then said he was aided and abetted by the Minister of Tourism. Operation SHIELD will include strict penalties for any official who uses their office to secure favors, to block enforcement actions, or influence decisions that are not in the best interest of this country, but may be in the best interest of their friends or donors or cronies. The E in SHIELD stands for ending unfairness. The current system is failing everyone. It fails the Bahamians who want order and security. It fails migrants who follow the law and wait their turn, as many have, and are unable to have their application dealt with in a timely manner. Some have waited not just months, if it's for a permit or visa. Some have waited years and years and cannot have their matters resolved. When somebody comes recently, and because of their connections and finances, they can leapfrog everyone. We will create clear, published criteria and timelines so that legal migrants can trust the process. And illegal migration is met with firm, consistent, but humane consequences. The L in SHIELD is to limit approvals to the law. What does this mean? Citizenship, work permits, and permanent residency must be granted only in full compliance with the law. We will introduce stronger internal checks so that no one is sworn in without properly renouncing prior citizenship where required. And no large-scale approvals happen in the dark. And none of these concierge services drive by, particularly in gated communities. And we have no plans on doing it at funerals. Under a Pintard administration, if you enter the Bahamas illegally, you will not be able to find a pathway to Bahamian citizenship. And D, disclose data. We will publish regular detailed reports on immigration decisions and on enforcement actions and border security metrics. Bahamians will see the numbers. They will see the trends. They will know if their government is working for them or failing them. In fact, the audit we've asked this government for, we will carry out. We wanted to know. We've asked dozens and dozens of questions in Parliament. How many work permits have you issued? How many permanent residencies and citizenship? We are sick and tired of some of the consultants, friends of this administration, being able to get 20 work permits before they can find the workers who they will sell them to. We are concerned. We are concerned when a person can be arrested and then give an explanation of a date when they came in that turns out to be false. They have no way of proving it. To change their story, to say, no, they didn't come by boat, they came by air, to be put in the detention center, only to have an application then submitted on their behalf and approved. And in the bracket next to the approval, the immigration officer or the person who prepared that particular document says, by minister. In January, we will give, again, revelations on a number of those reports. And for those who are interested, we do have the documents, as we did the last time, and we will be able to read them into the public hearing and for the media to take a look at it. And so we wish to say that Operation SHIELD, which you would be able to go on our website and look at in detail, I believe some 25 pages that outline how it is operational in many ways. We ask you to go and take a look. And we want you to know that this is but one of our many plans. No more silence, no more slackness. That is how you build a system that is strong, fair, lawful, and with compassion. That is how you restore confidence at home and credibility abroad. Operation SHIELD will ensure that we are firm at our borders, compassionate in our partnerships, and focused on long-term solutions. It's not complicated, but you can sum it up this way. The FNM will put Bahamians first. And so once again, Once again, the details of the plan and each letter are available on our website, fnmbahamas.org. fnmbahamas.org. I invite you to read it and to share it with your family. And so as I close, colleagues, we are running a country, not a tuck shop. I believe that Bahamians are the most welcoming people in the world. But you have to come in the right way. It doesn't matter your nationality. This is not confined to any one migrant community. Though, of course, the largest number of migrants hail from Haiti. We say to those Bahamians that it is important that you do not demonize any migrant community. The Bahamas is made up of all of them, and those that are full Bahamian citizens all make a contribution to the development and success of this country. But in recognizing that, we should not give Bahamians or any other group that is operating outside our laws a pass. They should be held to account. And so tonight as we close, I want you to know, Bahamians, your voice is powerful. We need every man and woman to stand up and fight for our country, on the streets, online, and yes, at the ballot box. This is a bad bill. But bad bills become law when good people do not vote, or don't speak up, or don't stand up. That's how the PLP came to power. And that's what they are relying on to stay in power. This Prime Minister and his deputy and the PLP, they knew exactly what they were doing when they offered Section 11 to offer immunity of prosecution for persons found illegally in the jurisdiction, who they know entered illegally into the jurisdiction, persons who are found with fraudulent documents. And only under pressure from the people, they decided to remove it. And even when they removed it, it was with no conviction, because the Minister of National Security said, we could have left it in because there's no offense under the law. Flippant on this issue, that is casual on this issue, as he has been on many others. Yes, this is a bad bill, a bill that has been passed. And since we did not get them to kill the bill, to get rid of the bill, come election time, let's get rid of them. And just so you are clear, there are some who wish to talk about this bill started under us. Interestingly enough, we didn't table the bill. We didn't pass the bill. So if they went in some archives, AKA the garbage, and they found something that was in draft, that's on them. The bottom line is they brought the bill, hid it from consultation other than to lay it in the House in the midst of a busy period. And then they passed the bill despite objections. And I say, they know what they were doing. We wondered what motivated them. What we did is we opposed the bill responsibly, led by the facts and guided by not only our plan, but by consultation. Some of the people who talk a lot about, listen, well, we the people championing this, them people they didn't even show up in the House to vote on the bill. Missing in action. That's the difference between us and them, and the difference between the government. We are guided by the facts. We seek advice. We are not like the other options available. The FNM is different and better than both. And we are an improvement on our previous selves. So when they wish to respond to all that we may or may not have done in the past, we have no problems owning things that we've done or not done. But we are under new leadership, and get over it. Operation Shield is a clear vision for what the FNM can do under new leadership with a new mandate. The past is the past. It's time to move on. So to anyone watching, I ask you to consider your options. You know exactly what you will get when you support the PLP. The same bill that has us sitting here and you watching and listening. And a prime minister who says we do not have a crisis in immigration, just as he didn't believe we had a crisis in crime. I and we disagree with him. And so, we are not here to sell you dreams, unrealistic expectations. We are saying that if we work together, if we're prepared to turn over every rock, if we're prepared to engage citizens, we can fix a broken system and remove bad actors. We need your help. And we need you engaged. And by the grace of God together, we can transform this system and restore trust in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. God bless all of you.
Ladies and gentlemen all, the leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition, the Honorable Michael Clifton Pintard, please. Now, we have exactly 9 minutes remaining for questions to your panelists. The floor is now open. One at the back.
Mr. Chairman, I would just...
Please approach the mic so that our listening audience can hear you, not only those in the room, but all across this country, from Grand Key in Abaco to Matthew Town and Inagua, who are tuned in and listening to our plan for immigration. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like for each of those presenters to provide a copy of their presentation. There are salient, There are salient points in those presentations that we should grab and let the Bahamian people hear it, because some of them may not have heard what I heard. Can you imagine a non-Bahamian person having access to health care, which I was born here, does not have legally? I am denied. That cannot happen. Let us have a copy of each presentation so we can take out of it what we see as a situation that is absolutely unbelievable and cannot be sustained.
Thank you for your comment.
Good night.
Jenny?
Good night. My question is, how does this bill affect our Constitution and our immigration laws? And secondly, is this bill implementing a national treaty?
Heather?
So I'll start with the first question. So, just like I said in my presentation, where there is a conflict between this act and any other act, the Smuggling Act prevails. Of course, the Constitution is the supreme law of the Bahamas, so no particular legislation can actually override the Constitution. So there's no way that this particular bill, or any bill or act of Parliament, can trump the sovereignty of the Constitution. But every other act, just like I said in the presentation, the section specifically says where there is a conflict, this act prevails. To your second question about implementing treaties, you know that the Bahamas is signatory to certain international and UN policies and protocols. The FNM government would have signed on to those in the past. And so yes, the Bahamas is a nation who has to put in place and codify, that's the technical word, international obligations. I know Mrs. Komalafi has the policy in more to mind, if you want to give further clarification on which particular UN treaty and policy the Act references.
Yes, just to piggyback off of what Heather said, even in her presentation, the challenge that we have is the conflict of the roles among the ministers when we're talking about the issue of immigration and national security, the powers that are in the hands of the Minister of National Security and whether he has the right to be able to grant certain privileges that is withheld for the Minister of Immigration, and for example, going back to this whole point of documentation. And we know the whole issue of citizenship is citizenship or rights to work or any type of privilege that you get through documentation is governed by the Constitution. But here we have a situation here within these provisions where there's a lot of vague provisions within this bill that it is difficult to say whether they would be in direct contravention of the Constitution, but what we do know is that there are rights that have been extended. And I can give you an exact example going back to the provision of, for example, 19, other rights of smuggled migrants. The minister shall afford smuggled migrants the right to privacy and confidentiality. Privacy and confidentiality. This is something that is enshrined in this particular bill, and to amenities including housing, the provision of food, clothing, shelter, documentation, and interpretation and translation services. And so obviously you can see the challenges that exist there in terms of the rights that are extended, and we say that some of these rights can be equal or even beyond some of the rights that have been extended to Bahamians, where you just have these automatic rights that have been enshrined in this particular provision.
We saw in section 15 where migrants will be availed to medical treatment, urgent medical treatment. We understand and appreciate that Bahamians, according to what we see in the law, do not have that specific right. We have 5 minutes left. Do we have any questions online that we can entertain? No? Next question, please.
I would like to ask one question for the government to explain to persons like myself. How do you continue to make illegal legal? That's the only question I have to ask. You come in as an illegal, how do you make an illegal legal? That's my only question.
That's an excellent point. Clearly what we have to focus on when it comes to the protection of our borders and protection of our sovereignty is a policy that's as simple as the gentleman just asked. How do we make what is illegal legal? And we really have to look at where that's happening and make sure that in the best interest of the nation, we cut it off and we don't allow it to continue. Because if it continues, we're going to become a nation of illegality, and that's not a nation we ever wanted to be. That's not a nation under the next administration we will ever become.
We have a question online. Can we have it, please?
Good evening. This is not the exact question, but it is something that has been asked of the official opposition several times, and I'm only the messenger. There's a view that the Free National Movement was not aggressive in the House of Assembly against this bill. I'm getting the sense that some persons did not see the House proceedings. There are 2 members of the official opposition caucus right here, the Honorable Leader, Mr. Michael Pintard, and Mr. Adrian White. For the benefit of those who do not know, what the FNM did in the House of Assembly and the Senate today, could you perhaps enlighten the audience and those who have those concerns?
Adrian.
What you had was a unified opposition party that all voted against the bill. So to begin with, the most fundamental act an opposition can do when legislation has been tabled and makes it through its second reading, committee stage, and third reading is to vote up or down on it. We are the only opposition party in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas that voted against the bill. We all had opportunity. We all gave our contributions over a 30-minute period. The mace didn't get thrown out the House this time. Adrian White, Shannon Dawn Cartwright didn't get locked up. The opposition didn't get dragged out by every single brown khaki officer you could find downtown. But that's because we have the next phase of our nation to be in place for. We can't miss any more time in the House of Assembly. We make our points clear. We listen to the people, we speak for the people, and we work for the people.
We were very surprised to hear that particular line shared, that we were not aggressive in the House. We know the liar who told it. And that's why we say to all of our supporters, feel free to fact check us. And again, pay attention. That person wished for the public to believe that they are the only person who have some aggression and assertiveness to defend the rights of Bahamians. We do so, and we do so honestly and ethically, and we don't have to lie about what we do or lie on others. That's who we are.
Next question, please.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm delighted whenever I see Bahamian people waking up. It just does my soul well. While we are in this process and in this discussion, I would wish for us to bring focus and attention to what is occurring at the Parliamentary Commission. We are aware that we're going to be moving from the usual cards as our ID to vote to a biometric system. Now, in the interest of time, I simply call for the removal of the Parliamentary Commissioner. His name is Harrison Thompson. Utter remove.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our session on immigration for this evening. You have been a wonderful audience. Good night.